Hello and welcome to the Sensual Being podcast with myself, your host, Jolene Whiting. I have been a pole dance teacher for nearly 20 years. I'm also a yoga instructor, and my favourite pastimes are connecting to my own sensuality, connecting with the world, and connecting with animals as well. In this podcast, you'll find new and inventive ways of how you see yourself, connecting yourself with others, and also how you see and view the world around you. Today, we are diving into all things to do with rituals, creating rituals, how to invoke different goddesses or deities, ascended masters, seasons into our rituals, and also honing in on the rituals that we might have already. Hello, Sensual Being, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today in our lead up to Halloween, to Samhain. We are still looking at various different ways of honouring ourselves and the time, but also to actually embark on new ceremonies and rituals that will actually increase our awareness and productivity throughout the year as well. So rituals and things are not just a time for this time of year. They are actually like all the time. And as we go through this episode today, I think you'll even more realize just how much they are for all year round, not just this time of year. The reason why I'm choosing to do this at this time of year is because people are a lot more open and receptive to things like dancing around the fire, and invoking some of the Halloween traditions. It just seems like witchcraft is a little bit easier to succumb to at this time of year. It seems like it's okay to do it this time of year, and then others might deem it's not okay to do it any other time, which is why I'm embarking on it at this time of year. But this is how I live my life. So what I'm going to be giving you today is tidbits, little outlines of just how I show up, and you can choose to take them in any way you want to. You can choose to run with any of these ideas however you want. And we're going to be heavily talking about the act of ritual, about ceremony. So to me, ritual means taking the time to honor something. It might be honor yourself, honor life, your life, someone else's life, the seasons. It really is so individual. And when I say taking time, I don't necessarily mean setting aside 4 hours a day for this, although sometimes I feel like that would be so amazing. And actually sometimes I have done that and I can just get lost in a ritual sometimes. It can be so divine. It can also be quite humbling. You can have things come up. It's a bit like if you are somebody who have never sat with yourself before in quiet contemplation, and I'm not saying all ritual has to be quiet, by the way, but I'm just saying as an example, if you've never sat with the silence of yourself to see what comes up, then when you do it, sometimes it can take you by surprise. Sometimes it can be quite icky and a bit hard to be with, and you have parts of yourself that we all do, that we just like push down, don't want to deal with that. Oh, it's too icky. I don't like that. It's still there. And sometimes it's these times of quiet or contemplation that they come up. So a lot of time in ritual, we can find these sort of things can come up for us, which is brilliant because it means that you get to face it head on and try and heal it in some way, shape or form. Things don't just get magically healed on their own. Sometimes we have to do something about it. And sometimes it's just awareness that it's there and giving it the compassion that we are human and that we are allowed to feel different things in our lives. And this is why I love doing ritual, because it can really increase how you go forward in your life. So it's a bit like that saying, you probably heard it, like, oh, if you haven't got enough time to sit for 5 minutes of meditation every day, you should definitely sit for an hour. It took me about 2 years of meditation to understand what that actually meant. And now I'm like, oh, I get it now. So this is why it's so important. If you almost feel like you haven't got the time to do anything like this, you need to do it more, because you need it. Like, when people say that they are busy, I just think, yeah, you're out of control in your life. We shouldn't be busy. Busy to me is an out of control state of being. To be productive, it's great. To have, money coming in is great. But that doesn't mean to say you have to be busy. Busy, to me, seems like the cliche, someone just running around the office trying to get from one person to the next, trying to get things done. And a perfect example of this was actually that. One of the office jobs I had years and years ago now, like 20 years ago, I got taken on as an assistant for this woman. And she used to be in the company. I think it was something called pre-sales. To be honest, even to this day, I don't really know what it meant. And she'd be working after hours. I only had to work mornings. That was all I was contracted for. So I was only working like 9 till 2. And she would be running around all the time, but she'd be staying late all the time. And I'd be thinking like, okay, right. And then after about a year, I think she either changed roles or she left. I think I might have got pregnant. I can't remember. But either way, I had a new boss. Yeah, both bosses were great, to be honest. He was great. But he wasn't running around like a headless chicken at all. He just got stuff done. He didn't seem to let stuff pile up. He just somehow had the exact same job. And every Friday become quiz day. Back in the day, you used to get emails from your friends of like quizzes that you could do. This is back when email was like popular for this sort of thing. So I'd get emails throughout the week of like popular quizzes from my friends who were at their work. And we'd like set aside Friday for like doing the best ones. He wasn't really busy at all. He got stuff done. We both got stuff done, but we weren't busy at all. And to be honest, for a long time, I think I was just kept on because of where we sat in the office. He would be on his own if I wasn't there. So he just kept me on, I think, just for the sake of having a friend to talk to. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that ritual doesn't necessarily have to take up a lot of time, but it's about becoming more aware and given time to honour certain aspects of our lives. It's a bit like when good things happen and we don't take the time to celebrate it. And it's like we really should. We really should be honouring these parts of our lives. And some of what we can dip into with this. So I'm going to go through a few different ways of how I do rituals or what I tune into. So one of them is, one that I absolutely love, is the Wheel of the Year. And if you've ever been to any of my circles and meditations, a lot of the time we would do it around these areas, or we do it near to the area, and sometimes we just sort of still have that little bit of celebration about them or awareness about them. And a lot of these, I'm going to tell you, you're going to go, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Oh, I know that. I didn't know that was a thing. Like, you may not have even been bothered by it before. So this is very much the Celtic Wheel of the Year. So the different celebrations, this isn't just Celtic, it goes further than that, but because of my lineage of where I live, Celtic seems to fit very well for me. So to start with, we have the summer solstice and the winter solstice, both at opposite ends of, they are like 6 months apart. So the summer solstice will be like the longest day of light. And then the winter solstice will be the shortest day of light. And then we also have another two that I'm sure you'll be like, yeah, I know these. So you have the autumn equinox and the spring equinox. So these are also times of ritual and deep ceremony. So the equinox means it's equal time of day and light, like light and dark in the day. So we have that twice a year, again, 6 months apart. But then in between each of these, so in between like the winter solstice and spring equinox, we have Imbolc, which is the beginning of February. We also then, after spring equinox, we have Beltane, which is coming on into summer. And then in between summer solstice and the autumn equinox, we have Lammas, which is like very much like time of the harvest and things like that, beginning of August. It's when the harvest starts. We are in the height of the summer at that point, or the height of the best weather, in theory. And in between the autumn equinox and winter solstice is Samhain, So Samhain is end of October, beginning of November. It's very much a fire, ceremonic type time. And it's also in Samhain or Halloween, it's where the veil is the thinnest. So the ability to connect with spirits and loved ones who have passed, that is a lot around Samhain. And it's said that if you burn candles, it means you are protecting yourself from negative spirits at the same time. So I'm not going to go too much more in depth than that, but that's just to give you an outline of using the wheel of the year as to be part of your ritual setting. You've also got very much connecting with cycles of the moon. So the moon will go in through a cycle every single month, and you can choose to connect in with that, like for example the new moon, like when there isn't any moon visible up in the sky. And that is a time of like setting intention and the start of things. And then when you go a couple of weeks later to the full moon energy, as a lot of the time that's that really bright moon, it casts moon shadows out, in the darkness. It's so beautiful. And that is normally a time of like heightened energy, really pushing forward with things, making things happen. So, you can honor the different moon cycles, or any time of the month you can honor the moon cycle. But you've also got sunrise and sunset, which is one that I absolutely love. This can be daily. And sometimes you have to imagine the sun if it's very cloudy, but he's still there. He's still there. But you can honor the sunrise, the start of a new day. You can honor the sunset, the reflection on a day. And you might start to think by now that even if you didn't think you had ritual, maybe you do, So maybe this awareness is already within you that you already tap into. And also, let's not forget, we can tune into our body. We can honor our body, the ritualness of our body, the appreciation of our body and how we work, sending love and healing light energy into ourselves to heal ourselves if we've got things wrong, if we've got challenges within our body or our state of mind, to actually give ourselves time to nurture ourselves with approaches to ourselves that is beautiful, connective, and not just numbing. So I said earlier about actually no, I didn't say earlier, I did an intention earlier, just before this, I just realised it wasn't earlier, about if you watch things like films and programs and stuff, or you're scrolling, are you doing it with, is there good intention behind it, or are you just taking up the time procrastinating? Are you just filling your time with void energy or negative energy, rather than to actually connect into yourself, to your body, to see what your body, your physicality actually needs in this moment? And this is where doing the rituals around your body, and this can be simple as a meditation, it might be a bit of dance, it might just be a bit of intuitive movement to see where and how your body wants to move. And if you get any like sticky points in your body, maybe like shaking that part of your body, maybe just imagining breathing into it, and as you breathe out you release energy from that area. Because what we don't seem to realize is that there is so much wisdom already within us. It's a little bit like, when you get food poisoning and you think, you're like, I know what did that. I definitely know what did that. And you can't explain how you know, but you know. Intuition can be very strong at times, but our intuition is there all the time if we tune into it. And it's so funny because putting this stuff out, it feels like 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been having a podcast episode about this. It just wouldn't have been in me so deep to think that I need to share this with you, because it just wasn't quite there. I was quite happy to watch a couple of films back to back and just sit down and numb my brain and just mong out. It's like, what's the point? I wasn't tuning in, and I almost feel like I missed out on so much time that I could have actually been tuning in to my higher self, the higher consciousness of myself, to actually realize that I'm such a powerful being, just like you are. And if you're being triggered by what I've just said there, or you think, no, I'm not that, she might be that, but I'm not, I promise you, I am no better than you are. You have this gift inside of you, and you'll probably choose to use it in different ways if you actually allow yourself to peel yourself away from the old habits and actually dive in to the magic of the ritualness of yourself. Another way of connecting in to this type of ritualistic energy is to work with the goddess or god energy. Now my good friend Dee, she runs these beautiful cacao ceremonies I've been going to now for 2 years. They're the one thing that I have stuck with for years. I have not stuck with anything, but I have stuck with this for 2 years. Every month I have not missed one, because I just love the space that she holds. And she was the first one, really, I would say, to introduce me to working with the goddess. I've never really worked with the goddess before. And you know what? I'm going to tell you now, it felt very out of my comfort zone. I loved parts of her ceremony straight away, like the cacao, the drumming. I loved all that. The sound bowl, loved it. But the choice of words that she was using with the goddess really not triggered me, but made me feel a bit out of my depth. And I thought, ooh. So I really leaned in to how that was making me feel. And it's so interesting how it's unfolded over the years, because I sort of feel like I connect with different ones at different times now. Sometimes they come through and I didn't even know I'd really thought about them before. And I find all of that really interesting. So like a very cliche one, you probably heard of goddess Aphrodite, the Greek goddess Aphrodite. She's very much, and I'm literally just going very, very brief on this. She's very much a goddess of self-love, tuning in to the own love that you have for yourself, your body, your wisdom. And she's very much one that we have worked with around Valentine's, but you can work with her at any time. And a goddess is a deity. It's hard to explain. I feel like goddesses are a lot of time, like in Greek mythology, Norse mythology, Celtic mythology, they are everywhere, and they can sometimes appear in different mythology, but with different names, but with the same kind of background. So Aphrodite in Norse mythology might actually appear as a Greek goddess, or a goddess as a different name rather than the Greek name of Aphrodite. So it's very interesting to work with them, because they're kind of like archetypes of how we can show up, and it's like the support and guidance from like Aphrodite to show up in more of a self-love way towards ourselves. So it's kind of like an archetype to work with. Hecate is a goddess who I've been working with a lot lately, because I'm in a mystery school at the moment, and Hecate is one of the main ones that we really tune into. And Hecate, according to Greek mythology, she was the daughter of one of the Titans, and he was the goddess of destruction and the mother, the Titan goddess, of falling stars and nighttime divination. So Hecate has taken on this kind of persona of being the goddess of like witchcraft, magic, the night, ghosts. She's represented by like keys, followed by a black dog. She has a snake, and she's like the torchbearer. So the torchbearer icon kind of came along when in Greek mythology and again, God, you could go right in depth with this, but very short outline. Hecate followed Demeter into the underworld when Demeter's daughter Persephone was taken by Hades, and she was basically, in theory, kidnapped and taken into the underworld. And this is also a play on the seasons as well, like to invoke your connection with the season, because Persephone can only come back for 6 months of the year. So that is the time when you could say everything is growing, because Demeter is happy her daughter is back. And then when Persephone has to descend back into the underworld, because she is now basically contracted to stay there through various means. I think it's because she ate something down in the underworld because she was hungry. I think it was, yeah, and I think that's the pomegranate. So that's why we connect pomegranates with Persephone. But yeah, so it's got to go right on a tangent today. So the reason why it connects with the seasons is because Demeter is like the bringer of like a lot of life. So things grow around Demeter. But obviously when Persephone is down in the underworld for 6 months, then everything goes much darker. Everything does not grow in the same way. And that would be our winter. And then when she comes back, it's the summer. But anyway, Hecate's role in this was she went with Demeter into the underworld with her torches, and these torches, so she's also represented by crossroads and new beginnings, so she would be lighting up these crossroad passages in the underworld so that Demeter could find her way through to actually guide her to her daughter. So that's why Hecate has these torches. And Hecate is I think Hecate can get a bad rap sometimes. Sometimes people think that she's evil and dark magic, but actually she's here to support you in your darkest times. That is who Hecate is. And the reason why, for example, we're working with her in ritual at the moment is because we are kind of going deep into our souls with the work that we're doing. So she is there to support us in our dark times, and also she's represented as a triple-headed goddess, and she also represents phases of the moon. She represents maiden, mother, crone. So she represents this female archetype that you are everything, and it doesn't matter how old you are mother, you are maiden, and you are crone. We have the gifts from all parts of ourselves. It's to know basically that we are whole. Again, it comes back to that sort of thing. And if you're working with the goddess energy, you might have heard things like ascended masters. So ascended masters are supposedly beings who have actually had a human form, a human life at different times, and a spiritual development through different lifetimes has meant that they've got this ancient wisdom within them that they can actually come back. So you could be in a meditation. I remember for years I kept on seeing purple light, and now when I look back I think, oh, was that Saint Germain? Because I didn't realise any of this at the time. But upon learning about him, I thought, God, I think he's been quite close. So I think I've had wisdom from him come through. And that is working with ascended masters. So a lot of the time there's a bit of crossover with God and goddess energy and ascended masters. Ascended masters also include like Isis, Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, Jesus, Mary Magdalene. They are all beings that have gone through many lifetimes and almost like upgrades in each of those lifetimes to learn so much more about the world and how to show up. And when you think of the time that we are in now, the time that we live in quite a fear-based reality at the moment, if you turn on the TV, turn on the news, there are a lot of things being put out that are inducing a lot of fear if you choose to succumb to it. And with that, when you start tuning in, this is what I found personally, when I start tuning in to the sacred feminine energy or sacred masculine energy, let's not forget we are both masculine and feminine, but when we tune in to that type of divine nature, we actually start to see that reality is actually a lot more simple than they're putting out. There's actually a hell of a lot more love if you choose to see it. And sometimes I think that being guided by these ascended masters at this time can actually attune us to a different frequency, a better frequency, the frequency of love, the frequency of light. And I'm not saying nothing bad will ever happen to you, but what I'm saying is you are actually supported by a hell of a lot of light. Even if you don't even realize it, you are. So I'd like to come on to how we can have rituals. Like, what is a ritual? Now, a ritual can be as simple as something that you think about. It could be as simple as just talking into your cup of tea when you drink it in the morning. It might be to take a couple of breaths of fresh air outside and just bring in the sun energy, bring in the moon energy to yourself. Rituals do not have to be very long. They are more about awareness and intention than they are about the duration. And you might find that you set out a whole ritual and stick to it. You might find you set out a whole ritual and don't stick to any of it. You might just go through intuitively. And it is completely up to you how you do it. So my rituals a lot of time include lighting candles, particularly this time of year. I have more candles because we are in a sort of darker season. And also what I said earlier about the veil being thinner, the candles and the flames actually protect me. And I only call in light energy, and I have the choice of what I let come in. This is where the awareness is great, because you get that choice of what you let in to your being, rather than just going through this state of unawareness and letting other entities grab onto you, because they are also out there, but that is not who or what I work with at all. Meditation is great as well. Singing along with songs. Now, I don't really listen to any sort of pop music or popular music at all. I know everybody raves about Taylor Swift, but honestly, if you go down the occult symbolism route and see what's gone on with her, you may think different about Taylor Swift. But I really like medicine songs. I really love medicine songs. Katarina Rain is someone who I really connect with a hell of a lot. So I do connect with her songs, but you can find anything. Or chanting. Chanting is beautiful. Or you can make up your own songs and allow your voice to take on a form of its own and see where it goes. We are so scared to use our voice, but yet using it in this way is incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. We can do yoga, particularly to honor the body. Or you might do some Tai Chi or Qigong, something like that. Or dancing, any sort of dancing. It doesn't matter whether it's choreographed or just intuitive. It really doesn't matter. But just moving your body and really think about what you're dancing to, what music you're listening to, what input you're coming in to yourself. Because it's remembering that the words are spells. So when you're singing certain songs, you are bringing that spell into your life. So just be aware. Just be aware. And also plant medicine. So my favourites are, I love cacao. I don't have it every day, but I love having cacao. And I find that really tunes me in to the love frequency. You can even just tune in with tea. It can be herbal tea. You can tune in to the properties of that, the herbs coming from the earth. You can really tune in that way. There are other plant medicines, kambo, ayahuasca, mushrooms. Mushrooms I have done, not for many, many years. I would like to do them more in a ritualistic setting now, but I still haven't quite got around to it. I would like to be surrounded by the right people for that. So that's not really on my radar right now. Writing, poetry, cooking, seasonal cooking as well. Like right now it's coming up to autumn and I can't wait to make butternut squash risotto. It feels like the right time of year and I just can't wait to make it. But seasonal cooking or baking, and with intention, like if you're making a birthday cake for someone, there's so much intention in that. It's a ritual in its own right. Decluttering and tidying, oh my god, you have no idea how much of a ritualistic thing that is. Wow. To really enhance the energy in your space, changes your state of being completely. Other rituals that you've probably heard of before are like weddings and funerals, christenings, being baptized, bar mitzvahs, and I can't remember the name of it. We do not do this one enough, but celebrating, I say a girl's first period, a young woman's first period. We don't, I forgot, menarche? Is that it? I don't know. I'll look it up after. but to actually embrace that rite of passage. And the ritual can be simple. It doesn't have to be much, but the honouring of those times. And you might now think, actually, I do have a lot of those things. Easter, Christmas. Now, I'd argue with some of the rituals that we have in our lives, like Christmas, you might have your own ritualistic kind of vibe with it. So you might not be thinking about, the religious aspect of it, like the Christian aspect of it. But you might have your own ritual with it, like we bring the family together. It is a time to be grateful for each other's presence. That is a ritual in its own right. But it's nice to have the intention behind your rituals, even if they are at times like Easter and you're just eating chocolate. Ask yourself why that's important to you. And you might end up thinking, like for me now, Christmas is not what it used to be. And I'm probably not going to put my tree up at home this year. I did succumb to it last year, 2 weeks before Christmas, but I don't know. And that was only because I didn't know if I'd miss out. And actually, once I put it up, I did enjoy it, but I could have easily not done it. So there's plenty of rituals in our lives already. Even the one of like wild swimming on Boxing Day. I mean, we've heard of that. I haven't actually done that. Can you believe that? I've not done that. But so many people, that's a once a year wild swimming thing that they go out into the sea on Boxing Day. I like to do bits of wild swimming all year round rather than just at one time. But really, that's a tradition I can get on board with. I mean, come on. I need to get my butt in gear. Birthdays are rituals as well. So there are so many rituals in our lives, but it's all about the intention behind it. And how you choose to play this out is completely down to you. You can have so much fun with it, and it doesn't even have to stay the same way. And let's not forget the episode from last week where I talked about connecting with the elements, and that particularly bringing in the different directions into your rituals at the start, and then open the space back up for the elements to disperse afterwards. So that is also within your ritual setting as well, if you want it to be. Sometimes I call in the directions, and sometimes I don't. So it depends on what you are wanting from the setting and what feels right for you. Like I say, you can do this in any way you want, and it's okay if some stuff feels a bit uncomfy or a bit edgy, like I had with the goddesses and the goddess energy, and that's okay. But if you sit with it, see what happens, because it might be that you're feeling uncomfortable because you know somewhere in your psyche that it's going to bring up something that's going to make you feel even more uncomfortable and humble you. But actually, could it be worth it? So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that episode. There's so many different things you can take from it. And feel free, please, to let me know what your rituals are and what you enjoy doing. Or maybe it's something that you've always done and you didn't even realise that it could be considered a ritual. It's just part of you. We are very ritualistic people. That's why we are so hell-bent on Christmas and Easter and birthdays. We have all that in us already. But the question is, what's your intention behind all of it? So as always, remember to lead through your life with your heart and to live with intention. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with your friends and on social media. If you have the time to rate or review this podcast, I'd be ever so grateful. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Jolene Sensual Being. The links to my YouTube and to sign up to my mailing list will be in the show notes as well. I look forward to speaking with you again very soon.